So in today's video, we are making block number 3, the friendship star of Behind the Blocks. Now block number 3 in the series, you might start to notice some patterns occurring. This block consists of half square triangles and squares. And that's it, that's all you need to do. We've already made half square triangles in blocks 1 and 2, so this should be starting to feel a little bit easy. So without further ado, grab your supplies for block number 3 and let's get sewing. So we've already made half square triangles in the first 2 blocks in this series, and as the blocks continue, you'll start to notice a pattern that half square triangles make up quite a lot of blocks. So I've done some prep in advance, and if you need to recap, you can watch the first video in the series. I go into lots of details, bore you to death with half square triangles, but we're just going to go over it very quickly here. So you're going to start with your background squares, your color squares, and then this is your smaller square for the center. So take this and put it to the side for a second. With your larger squares, and remember all the sizes are in the pattern handout. If you need to get that, the link is in the description to download. Take your background squares and with a ruler and a pen, and it can be any pen because this line will not be seen, you're going to draw a line from corner to corner diagonally. And then you're going to take that and you're going to place it right sides together with your colored square, and you're going to place pins in. Great tip, put your pins in the corner, making sure that everything's laying flat so that when you sew, you don't have to remove your pins. They're not going to get in the way of your presser foot. And what we're going to do is for both of these, we are going to sew a 1/4 inch away from the line on both of these. Now, I like to give mine a quick press before I cut because it makes sure that any wrinkles in the fabric are relaxed. So you can see this one here, it's got kind of wrinkles in it, whereas this is the pressed bit. But I feel like this helps me when it comes to making my HST, but you may skip this step if you don't want to do it. However, I do recommend. Next up, you're going to grab a pair of scissors or a rotary cutter and cut along that drawn line. It doesn't matter if it's a bit messy because it's in the seam allowance, but you can use your rotary cutter if you really don't. With these in a nice neat pile, dark color or darker color facing up, set the seam, roll back and use your fingers to gently press this open. And then when you're happy, set the seam with your iron. One thing I like to mention is pay particular attention to these ends. Sometimes these can go this way or they can go this way. So just be careful that you're not stretching it like this and it ends up like a smiley seam. You want the seam nice and straight. You can also roll these back and use your iron to press open as well. It's another way to do it. It's easier to distort it that way though. There we have it. We have made 4 half square triangles. Now, we are going to want to size these up. So you can see this is the center square of our block and this is the HST. And if I put them together, you can see it's just a little bit smaller than a square triangle. This is 4.5 inches square. So we're going to square all our HSTs up to 4.5 inches now. Now, when it comes to squaring up our HSTs, I like to use a ruler that is bigger than the HST. It just makes life so much easier. You can also see I use a masking tape ledge that runs along the 45 across the square, and I use that to help me. It helps to keep things aligned. The first cut is not about getting it to size. The first cut is to give us 2 straight edges. So we're going to trim off hardly anything. We need a 4.5 inch HST, so make sure that the lines of the edge of the block extend past the 4.5 inches. Make sure that your 45-degree line is running across, or in my case, my ledge is wedged into the seam. And I'm going to just square up this. So now I know that these edges are perfectly straight. I can turn this round, and with my ruler, I can now line up my 4.5 inch line along the bottom and along the side. These are the ones that we just cut, and my seam wedge thingy is wedged into the seam, so I can just very gently trim off. And you can see there's minimal trimmings that come off of these, and that's my half square triangle squared up. If you are not confident making half square triangles, if this is new to you and you're beginning, make the starting squares 1/2 inch bigger, and that will give you much more space to work with when it comes to trimming these to size. And then repeat for all of these half square triangles, squaring them up to 4.5 inches. So there we have our 4 half square triangles trimmed, and that was all the waste. Next, we lay the block out. So now that we have all the pieces that we need, we have our center square, we have our 4 half square triangles. So we're going to lay these out around the center square, like so. No, that way. Dear me. Every time. And then, so there's a star. No, there we go. This is why we lay things out. And then we take our corner squares and we fill them in. Okay, now this is nice and easy. There are no seams to match. We're going to take these, place them right sides together, join them with a 1/4 inch seam, chain piecing, leaving everything connected, and then we're going to add these on at the same time. Now here we are back with our rows, which did not go to plan because I got halfway through sewing the second row and my bobbin ran out, and then I got halfway through sewing the last row and realized that I forgot to press record on the camera. So that was great. Instead, let's carry on. This is the 3rd row, this is the center row, and this is the top row. So at least we've sewn the pieces in the right direction. Okay, now what we want to do is get these seams to lay as flat as possible because there's going to be some bulk. So let me just flip this over. So you can see these seams where the half square triangles are, it kind of wants to go away from the half square triangle block because of this seam here. So we want to do everything we can to make this happy so that it stays flat. So we're going to press the top row out the way, and we're going to press the bottom row out the way. And because the middle row is going in the way, we're going to let it go in the way. So we're just going to press it upside down. And I'm going to press this properly from the front, but I'm just setting the seams a little bit from the back. I'm just taking advantage of the fact that this is the way that the seams want to go, and this will still nest for us. Okay, so now if we flip these over, we've got these seams going this way, these seams going this way, and these seams going this way, which means that they all nest beautifully together. So we're just going to make sure the seams are fully open. I'm not pulling or tugging, I'm just giving a gentle bit of pressure or even traction, and then using the iron to just finish the work. Same thing here, I can see this is not quite open, so just a little bit of gentle tension to open the seam. A lot of times people will say, oh, my block is not the right size, I'm about 1/8 of an inch short. And it's either because their 1/4 inch is too big, and so their adds up over the course of the block, or they're pressing, the seams are not open. So I don't know how well it shows up on camera. Let me see if I can zoom in a touch. So here, you can see this is lovely and flat, but here, this has got a kind of ridge. See how my finger pushes the fabric because it's getting stuck? On this side, my finger just glides over because this seam is not fully open. So I'm just going to turn around, a gentle bit of tension, and just gently coax that open, being very careful not to stretch. Now there are other ways to do this. You can use quilting gloves and you can press along the seam and then gently open it, or you can do what I'm doing. There is no right or wrong way to do this. Some people will tell you that tugging like this is the wrong way because you're stretching the fabric. That's their opinion. In my opinion, it's okay as long as you're being careful. So you do you, whatever you feel most comfortable with. Don't let me or anybody else tell you how to do it. So now, let's get this finished. Place these right sides together. We've got nesting seams and they are the right size. So, you know, that's always a good sign. I'm going to place pins in this to hold this together. And then also, in the essence of saving time, I'm going to, once I've pinned that, I'm just going to roll it up. I'm going to take this side, I'm going to place it right sides together. I'm going to pin it. I'm going to sew the first side, open it up, sew the second side, and then come back and press it to finish. Okay, now here is our block. We're just going to check everything's in the right place. Excellent. Now let's just check these points and see what's going on. This is good. This is okay. As is that one. This one here, something a little wonky going on. Let's just have a little look. This seam needs to be fixed. This is not nesting. There's a tiny little gap between the nested seams, and that's why that results in that offset seam. So if you have something that looks like this, just unpick. You don't need to go all the way back, but just unpick a bit. You can see that that seam allowance there is also too small. It has wiggled as we've been sewing. So we're going to unpick these two and do it again. We have resewn. Now that's much better. This one is still a little bit off. I mean, it depends how fussy you want to be. I'm not that bothered. And then these ones down here are fine. So let's get this pressed. Set seam, roll it back. Give it a gentle little tug to make sure there's no fabric hiding in that seam allowance, and then press along and pushing away from the block to make sure the seam is open. I'm going to do the same for the bottom one. Seam, turn it around, run my fingers along the seam, pressing it open, gentle bit of tension. Give it a good press so it's nice and flat. Let's just take a quick look at the back. So we can see we've got these ones going that way, these going towards the middle, and these going towards the middle. And in terms of pressing the rows, it doesn't really matter which direction you press, but they kind of want to go away from the center of the quilt block as well because of the bulkhead. And so that is the friendship star. So that was simple. We make 4 half square triangles and then we lay them out, colored and background square, and then we have our block sewn together. Now, when I was sewing this, you saw me unpicking, or well, you didn't see me unpicking, but I did unpick a seam off of camera and re-sew it. I actually re-sewed 2 seams because I wasn't happy with them. Now, I could have left that out. I could have done it off camera and then just came back and been magically, wow, it's amazing. However, I decided that I prefer the honest approach to say, look, sometimes things don't exactly turn out how we plan. Now, in my case, what happened were 2 things. First thing was the nested seams, instead of butting up against each other, there was a tiny little gap, and that caused the seams not to line up on the front, and we didn't get the nice point. The second problem that I had was, as I'm trying to, and this is not an excuse, I promise, but as I'm trying to sew, I have like a big massive video light in front of me and a camera tripod. And as I try and kind of reach round and over, sometimes my seams wobble. So at the place where it was wrong just happened to also be where 2 seams were nesting. And the seam, instead of being straight, the seam just wobbled like that a little bit and made the 1/4 inch seam smaller, which caused more of the seam to be exposed in this little intersection here. So I say these things just to make you aware, like, we're not all perfect. Things go wrong sometimes, you know, we're just human beings, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it going wrong or not being perfect. We should just take it as a learning experience. I now know in future I need to put my camera and tripod in a different position so that this situation doesn't happen again. And that when I'm nesting things, I want to make sure they're absolutely nested before I pinned, because that wasn't quite right. So that's my learning from that. And me showing you my mistakes, I hope that helps you to look out for some things that are going to help you sew this a little bit quicker. Now, in terms of example quilts for this one, there are actually only 2 that I could come up with. And if anybody else were looking at these things, oh, Tom, you could do this or you could do that, I'd love to hear from you, because I'd love to know what else you could do with this. But I came up with this with the block sashed in rows with some cornerstones and some borders. And I used the blue color for the cornerstones. I mean, like, I'm explaining this, but you can see this on screen. I used the blue cornerstones to tie in to the bits of the star, and then I used the dark border to frame it. And then the only other thing I could think about coming up with was to do the same thing but on point. Don't get me wrong, I think they look lovely. I think these are great and I would happily make these. But I was kind of stumped with this one as to what else we could do with it. So if you do have ideas, like I say, let me know, because I'd love to know what else is possible with this block. So that was block 3 in Behind the Blocks. if you're wondering what fabric do I need and how do I take part and what do I do, Tom, then what you must do is go into the description of the video and find the link, and you will find a sign up where you can get the worksheet that has all the fabric requirements for all of the 12 blocks. And then once you've signed up, the system automatically starts sending you emails. So this is block 3, so then you'll get another 3 emails, one for each block, with the PDF worksheet and step-by-step instructions on how to make this. So that's in the description below. There's also a link to the colouring page on PREQUILT, so if you haven't done it yet, you can start working on your colours and you can decide how this is going to look. And what else do you need to know? Well, not really very much. That's quite about it for block 3 in the series. So block 4 is, he says, well, what is block 4? So I had to look it up, but block 4 is the ribbon star. Little sneak peek. Oh, ooh. So that's coming up in block 4 video, which will be out September 2023. So everything you need is in the description below. Then that will give you all you need to do to take part in this project. Don't forget, if you are sewing along, and lots of you have been, and I have been admiring your handiwork on Instagram, tag me with the ColourBlind Quilter and use the hashtag #BehindTheBlocks2, and then I can see all the beautiful blocks you're making. And somebody for block number 2, I can't remember your name, I'm so sorry, but you made it in purple and orange and it was mwah, loved the colors. That was absolutely stunning, very pretty. So share your blocks on Instagram so we can all see what you have been making. So yeah, friendship star, done. Ribbon star coming up next. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up because that does help my channel, and subscribe so that you'll get notified when the next video in the series comes out. So have a great day. Have a great sewing session, enjoy making this block, and we'll see you in the next video.